Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I am your host, Anthony Gamer, and in today's episode, we're going to discuss NES Prototypes. First, I want to say a great big thank you to all the viewers and subscribers. We are up to 550 subscribers. Thank you so much. And a big hello to all the new subscribers. And, of course, a great big hello to all my long-term subscribers, especially those that have been here since the beginning. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Now, prototypes are nothing new to this channel. We've discussed prototypes for every game system that I've discussed, from the Atari 2600 all the way up to the ColecoVision and pretty much everything in between. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with what a prototype is, this is a unreleased game. Think of it as a game that was created but never made it out into the retail market. Now, every game system out there has some prototypes. That's just the way it is. Even the newer game systems have some games that you may have seen previews for, and then they just never materialize. That's nothing new. Now, back in the early 80s, the reason we had so many prototypes is because of the video game crash of 83 and 84. So there were quite a few games that had been planned to come out but never did. Over time, a lot of the ROMs for these titles have been found, and people have shared them on the internet. Sometimes they put them on carts. Other times they just play them in emulation. But there are quite a few ROMs out there for other game systems that can't blame the video game crash for their great numbers. When it comes to the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Famicom for that matter, the reason there are so many prototypes for this particular game system is a little bit different. There was not a video game crash at that time. As a matter of fact, Nintendo did all they could to prevent another one from happening by regulating the games that they would release for their system. With that in mind, there would be some titles that wouldn't pass Nintendo's seal of quality. Although sometimes I'm surprised with the ones that did pass. Some of those the game developers would just say, okay, that's fine, and then it would be the end of it. And then eventually the ROMs might be located and released to the internet. Other game companies, not going to mention any names, they decided to go around the lockout chip that the NES had and release the games anyway, thus opening themselves up to lawsuits. But we'll get into the unlicensed games later on. For now, we're going to talk about some prototypes for the Nintendo Entertainment System. So without further ado, let's get into the games. And our first game for today is Adventures of Dr. Franken. Now, this game would actually get released for the Super Nintendo in 1993 and for the Game Boy in 1992. The version you're looking at here was going to be released for the Nintendo. It never got past the prototype stage. I'm not sure if it's finished or not, but regardless, the story behind this game is that you are a Frankenstein's monster and you are trying to put your girlfriend Bitsy back together again. There's all kinds of keys and special items and hidden rooms. It's kind of a neat game. I'm probably going to have to play this on the Super Nintendo and see if I can complete it, because really it's not half bad. Next up, we have Airball. Now, you may recognize this if you're a computer gamer, because it was basically released for every computer under the sun. And they did try to port it here to the NES, but it was canceled. Now, what is going on in this game? In this game, the player begins every round atop inflating stations. These inflating stations are scattered throughout the arenas, also act as checkpoints. Remaining atop of inflating station for too long will cause the player to burst. So you have to just kind of go around and pick up stuff and jump around. Now, the controls on this are very, very complicated. Oh, Lord, I mean, to be honest with you, most of the time I played this, I was just trying to figure out the controls. I forgot that you kind of have to turn the controller on its side or something like that, I guess. But, it was just a pain. Now, I played it before on a computer, and it seemed to go a lot smoother. Which, sometimes when games are made for computers, they should pretty much stay there. All right, next up we have, oh no. No, I won't do it. I refuse. Not gonna do it. Moving on. Next up, we have Big Nose meets the Witch Doctor. Now, if you are familiar with the Big Nose character, he's this caveman that kind of goes out on adventures and likes to kind of skate around and stuff and hit things. And it seems like he's a much bigger character in the UK than on this side of the pond, as Codemasters was the company that made this game. And honestly, until I'd started doing research for this channel, I'd never heard of it. But anyway, in this prototype game, you once again take on the character of Big Nose, and it looks like you're searching for some witch doctor of some kind. The game's not finished in this prototype stage. You can't hit things like you could in the other games, and there's no sound or music. So it looks like this one wasn't quite ready to come out the door when it was canceled. Why it was canceled, who knows? I don't think the Big Nose character was really big anywhere outside of his native land, so that may have something to do with it. Now, if you were a reader of Nintendo Power back in the day, like I was, and probably many of you were, you probably heard of this game, Bioforce Ape. Now, this game was covered extensively in Nintendo Power magazine. Quite a bit. And as a matter of fact, I was one of the people that was really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, even though lots of screen shots were released, and there was all kinds of, cool stuff written about it, and it had been reviewed, it wasn't released. Really, why is hard to tell. Like I said, it was supposed to be out sometime in 1991, but it never got released. In this game, you take on the role of this ape whose human family was kidnapped, and somehow he has turned himself into like a hybrid ape wrestler. So you go around and beat the crap out of these guys. There's lots of flying around, and the action is pretty cool. Honestly, I kind of see why this game got quite a bit of hype back in the day. It's just really a shame it wasn't released. However, it has been dumped and is available for your playing pleasure. In the late 80s and early 90s, Tetris was extremely popular. Matter of fact, it kind of paved the way for a lot of other puzzle games. And game companies noticed this, and so there were lots of different Tetris clones out there, made not only for game systems, but also in the arcade. And there were different variations of the same concept of bricks dropping and making lines. Well, this arcade-inspired game is called Blockout. Now, in this game, you are looking down at the playing field, and the bricks will drop. You can rotate them, spin them, and you try to fill up an entire floor, or a face, as they call it. So it's really a cool game. Now, unfortunately, on the first, this one does not have adjustments for you to change the speed or height. It just kind of starts you off, and it goes really slow on level 1. But as you go along, it does speed up a little bit. It's a pretty cool game, actually. I know the arcade game was quite successful, but for some reason, even though this game looks like it was ready to go out the door, it was canceled for unknown reasons. Next up, we have Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. This was set to be released in 1993. I know with the popularity that Thomas has held for many decades, it's really hard to believe that a Thomas the Tank Engine game would be canceled, but this one was. I believe it's because it was such a late release. The Super Nintendo was already out by this time, and I think they just decided, even though the game seems completed, they decided not to release it. This game is made for very young children, as it teaches you how to do things with like sliding puzzles, counting. There's some stories in here. It's a pretty cool game for any young fan of Thomas the Tank Engine, which I was not. It wasn't on when I was a kid, and I had a daughter, so I have kind of discovered it in recent years. It's kind of a cool show, I know, but anyway. So if you got some youngsters around the house that probably enjoy Thomas the Tank Engine, they're going to love this game. The next game I reviewed in a previous episode, way back when I did an episode on games related to cats, and this one was previewed. This is Kitty's Catch, and it was originally programmed by a gentleman named David Wiebenson. When he created this game in his spare time, he was trying to find game companies to pick it up so it could get released for the NES. Unfortunately, nobody picked it up. So years later, the prototype found its way out there, and here it is. In this game, you take on the role of pitter or patter. It's a two-player only game, and you are trying to catch fish with your tail. Whoever can fill up their bucket first is the winner. Now, there's some power-ups out there that will give you a double-ended hook, but look out for those jellyfish as they will rip your hook out. So basically, it's a friendly two-player game that it's kind of sad this wasn't released because this game is kind of fun. Now, if you were around in the late 80s, you knew who the California Raisins were. They were a marketing campaign created by the growers of raisins in California. They were like a singing group who sang some old R&B standards. They had a platinum-selling album. They were in the Claymation Christmas. They had their own cartoon series, and they almost had their own video game. This is it here. The California Raisins, The Great Escape. Looks like it was completely done. You take on the role of one of the unnamed raisins, and you're trying to rescue your bandmates in this platformer-like game. Not a bad game, but still. And the reason this game was canceled was because basically the California Raisins characters were costing the growers more money than they were bringing in, so they were quietly canceled, just like this game. No matter what age you are probably familiar with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Did you know that they actually made a sequel? Disney didn't. It was this movie called Happily Ever After. It was released in 1990, I believe, to no fanfare. However, they kind of anticipated it would be a big commercial success, so they made a game tie-in. It wasn't. The movie wasn't a success. It pretty much went to the bargain bins, and yeah, the game never got released. And if this game is any indication by the clunky controls and the very basic graphics, the movie itself probably wasn't that great either. So, alright, now the next one is Happy Camper. Now, I had to search high and low for this one. I finally found it on a message board a few years ago. Oh gosh. And the reason I did is because it was supposed to be ultra rare, and it still is, and it's a prototype, and so, I love prototypes, but this game is terrible. From what I understand, your girlfriend has been kidnapped, and you're trying to somehow get her back, and you have beer cans and other things for weapons, and it doesn't look like you can actually leave the first screen. It looks like there's a lot of placeholders there, so I don't think they got very far in the game before it was canceled, which in a way is kind of a good thing because, this game is, unless it gets a lot better and it needs a lot of fine-tuning before it was even think about heading out the door. So this is definitely one that was not worth the search. And our final game for today is another one that I covered in a previous episode, and that is Hit the Ice. Now, if this is your first time hearing about it from me, this game was actually a very successful arcade game and then would get released for other systems later on. It was a big hit. It's a great hockey game. Now, the NES version was kind of had RPG elements as you were the team traveling around from different places and going against different teams. Really cool. It took it on a whole nother level. Unfortunately, it didn't get released. I'm guessing that it was probably because it was also a late release, or would have been a late release, and they decided just to go ahead and, scrap it at that point. The game seems complete, and it's really a lot of fun, so if you ever get a chance to play this one, I highly, highly recommend it. In our next episode, we will discuss more prototypes for the NES. Well, that brings this episode of Classic Gamer 74 to a close. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, let me know by giving me a great big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload any new videos. Connect with me on all my social media platforms. And please help me out on Patreon. I would greatly appreciate it. I got some cool videos on there you're not going to find anywhere else. And I got some big plans for this channel, but I will need your help to do that. So please help me out on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Well, until next time, this has been Anthony Gamer, wishing you guys a happy week. Until next time, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. See you soon. Bye for now.